going to terminate a CAT6 Ethernet cable. I don't know that this is the best way to do it. It's the way I've been doing it for a while. It works well. Very seldom have any problems with it. And it's relatively simple. I'll show you my techniques and you can decide for yourself which ones you want to use, which ones you might modify. This is about all you need. A pair of scissors, cable stripper, RJ45. This type has two portions, a crimper. First thing you want to do is strip 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the end of the cable. Be generous. Doesn't hurt if you waste a little cable. It's cheap compared to having to put a second end on. This is a very inexpensive stripper. Certainly the more expensive ones are nicer, but this works just fine. Clip it in the first groove there. Then you're going to rotate it until it cuts. There's a trick though. Rotate it in the direction towards the heavy side. If you rotate it this way, it has a tendency to slip out of that little clip there. If you rotate it this way, it just has a tendency to go deeper into the clip. So rotate it, you'll feel it cutting through the rubber outside, and after a couple of rotations, it'll get easier to move. When it gets easier, you know you're through the insulation. You can take it off and just pull that off. But save this. Going to have a lot of use for this external insulator. You're going to find a strip here of nylon filament or fiberglass filament or some type of filament here. Some people think that's to keep this cable from stretching. Actually, it's not at all. It's a stripper. So if you take your scissors and just cut a little notch in the cable side here to get it started, and then take that stripper, you're going to strip the wire right down. That's a little hard to hold with your fingers. I find it easier to take this rubber and pull it like that, and then you can find you can strip the cable down. Strip it about 1 inch, and that last inch is going to be the part that actually goes into your connector. Because you may have nicked the wires when you were stripping it, and we might be able to see them. Yeah, you can see the nicks on those wires from the stripper. You don't want to use that because eventually that's going to be a problem for you, or likely will. So we're going to strip the cable down to a low level where we know we've got nice clean cable with no nicks in it. Throw that away now. Bend my cable back, cable cover back, and clip that blue away. Like so. Okay, next we're going to, still hang on to this thing. Next we're going to separate the wires out a little bit. Just bend them slightly to the side, just so you can get to them easy. The biggest difference in a CAT5, CAT5e, CAT6 cable is this center conductor or center insulator that separates the twisted pairs more completely. At this point you need to cut that off. Just pull it down kind of tight. Cut it off about the same length as your cable cover. And then we got this. We need to untwist those wires at this point. The easiest way I've found to do it is to use this rubber again, rubber cable, get it started on one of the cables, and then just twist it around like that. And you actually untwist them pretty easily. You need that for each of the 4. You can do it without using this cable cover, but it's a little tedious. And unwind them until they're wrapped down to your covering again. Okay. Keep the color pairs together. And then we're going to take this one more time and straighten the wires out a little bit. Just pull them. See where the nick was? Definitely, I twisted it a number of times, but definitely a nick in there that can give you problems later on if you don't go below it. So now all I'm doing with this now is just getting some of the kinks out of the wire so they're a little straighter, a little easier to work with. You can do this with your fingers, but after you've done a half dozen of them, your fingers are going to get pretty sore. So that outside insulator comes in handy again. And you don't have to do it all the way to the end if you don't want, because we're going to cut them off here in a minute anyway. Okay. Now, separate the wires again to their natural colors. Orange and orange-white, green and green-white, blue and blue-white, brown and brown-white. Now there's a trick here though. You want the orange and the orange-white opposite of the brown and the brown-white. And then the blue and the greens can go up and down. And the reason I do that is because that's the order closely that they're going to go together when we actually put them in the crimp connector. So now we're going to put them in the proper order. And for a standard RJ45 B connector, it's going to be orange, white, orange. And you can remember, there's always the stripe and then the color. Stripe and then color. And then green, white, but this is where it's different. Right in the middle of the cable is where it's different. You're going to go green, white, blue, and then blue, white, green. So the only difference really in following a stripe color, stripe color, stripe color, is that the blue and the green get crossed. And that's why I had the oranges on the left, the blue and the green in the middle, so we can move them in, and then the last ones are going to be the brown, white, and brown. And try to work them in your finger, holding them in the same order, but work them so they get nice and firm together. That blue one broke off, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Typically you wouldn't have to deal with that, but it's going to be fine. Okay. Get a good tight ribbon there, just wiggle it around a little bit, and you should get a fairly tight ribbon of cable there in the proper color order. Okay, let's check the colors. I got orange, white, orange, green, white, blue. Blue, white should be next, and it's not. So let's get that blue, white over there after the blue. And then the green, and then the brown, white, and the brown. Hold them tight again, push them down a little bit. Get a nice flat ribbon, and let's check it one more time because we had it wrong. Orange, white, white, orange, white, orange, green, white, blue, blue, white, green, brown, white, brown. Okay, so now we got it nice and flat. Take the scissors, and we're going to cut off a nice flat ribbon across the top there. Keep them tight in your thumbs, thumb and forefinger, so that they don't move on you. Now, take this. Some connectors don't have this. Some of them you just push straight into the RJ45, but this one does, and I really like it. I think it's a very good way to be sure your wires are right, and you can see it much more clearly out here than you can when you start pushing it into the connector. If you look on the edge, this little guy's kind of tilted up on one side there. That's going to go on the top. That edge is up. And you can push the wires all the way through that. And I would. I'd push them down until they're pretty close to the insulator here on the outside. Check the colors again. They're right. And then you're going to take your scissors again and cut them off right at the back of that plastic connector. Just like that. Now I'm going to move the connector out just a little bit so that all the wires are right at the end, and then put them in the connector, in the exterior connector. The clip on the connector is going to go down, and then I'm going to push this with the wedge up into the connector, just like that. See what's happening on the side there. All the way. And now I'm going to give it a pretty good little push. And those wires that I pulled out a little bit are probably going back through that plastic and getting all the way to the ends. You can actually see the wires there if you want to verify the colors again. But the colors really can't move anymore because they're pretty well contained in that small piece of plastic. Now we're going to take the crimpers. Use the RJ45 cut. The clip will only let it go in one way. And you'll see the connector actually get crimped. See if I can get a real good shot of that when I squeeze the handle here. See those gold pieces crimping down into the wire. that should be a finished RJ45.